Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming to your city council meeting. I'll call us to order for Monday, February 12th. The first thing we're all going to do is silence our cell phones. Next, we're going to remember that the land where we're doing our business was home to a vibrant culture long before this culture came. And I think it's good to keep that in mind as we go about our day. Then we're going to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. John, you and I talked about waiting until about 6:30 for your comment from the people you were organizing with. Would you still like to do that? Or if we did it now, would that be okay for you? It fits fine. Great. So, Mr. Chairman, can we do public comment now? So I'm going to get that sheet when it's finished filling out, please. Thank you. What I'm waiting for just now is to get the sheet that shows folks who would like to address the city council tonight. Anyone is free to address the city council. And if you would like to speak to us, please raise your hand or come and sign on the sheet. Thank you. I'll take this moment to acknowledge that we have councilors Rivera and Cunahan online. Good to see you guys. Great. Thank you. Thank you. First, we have Vicky Stifter and then John Boonstra. If you could come up, please. Yes.
So, okay.
The green circle is the mic.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Reverend Vicky Stifter and I'm happy to be here this evening. I'm actually going to cede my time to John Boonstra, who's going to speak on behalf of our group.
Okay. Hi, good evening. Mayor Blackburn, members of the City Council. I'm Reverend John Boonstra. I live at 1372 Rosslyn Road here in Hood River. And I am joined here this evening by a group of concerned residents and interfaith groups from our community who are committed to peace and justice in Palestine, Israel, and the West Bank. We are among those who join together every Friday afternoon at 4:30 at the flagpoles across the street from the City Hall. We're part of movements of hundreds of thousands of people throughout our nation who are committed to a ceasefire in Gaza and who stand up and speak out for the values that bind us together as people of conscience. Scores of local governments across the nation are joining this call for peace. These include public declarations in Portland, Maine, New Haven, Providence, Greensboro, Dayton, Madison, Austin, Iowa City, St. Louis, San Francisco, Port Angeles, Eugene, and Corvallis, and the state of Maryland. They are taking action because they recognize that in addition to the obligation to respond to local concerns, they also have a duty to offer moral leadership to their residents on critical issues that impact the well-being of others. Tonight, we call upon you as the City Council of Hood River to join local and state governments calling for an immediate de-escalation and permanent ceasefire. The declaration recognizes that indiscriminate killing of innocent civilians is a violation of international humanitarian law, and that Israeli armed and military forces have murdered tens of thousands of innocent civilians in Palestine, over 28,500 as of today, and that hundreds of thousands more lives are at imminent risk if a permanent ceasefire is not achieved and humanitarian aid is not delivered without delay. And also that the federal government of the US has a major role in providing arms to and impacting the public policies of governments in Israel. The resolution we are bringing to you this evening has been signed by, so far, over 140 local residents. We are adding more signatures every day, and we are going to be bringing them to you. The resolution we are asking you to declare asks you to call upon our US congressional delegation, both in the Senate and House of Representatives, to join us in urging the Biden administration to immediately call for and facilitate immediate de-escalation and a permanent ceasefire and to urgently end the violence in Gaza, Israel, and the West Bank. We call upon the Biden administration to do three things. First, promptly send and facilitate the entry of adequate and sufficient humanitarian assistance to Gaza and the West Bank. Second, to facilitate the immediate release of innocent Israeli hostages and the immediate release of Palestinian prisoners who are unlawfully held in Israeli jails. And three, to facilitate the government in Israel and Palestine to come to a political two-state solution that promotes enduring peace and justice. The resolution also speaks to you to provide a copy of the Hood River delegates to the Oregon State Legislature, to U.S. congressional delegates from Oregon, the Oregon governor, and the President of the United States. So we urge you, in the name of peace, to put this on your agenda, to listen to the concerns of your constituents, and lead the way in calling for an immediate ceasefire. We thank you for your leadership. And I have for you, Abigail has one. These are the remaining petitions, and also copies of what was said tonight from the record. Thank you.
Thanks you all for coming.
Thank you.
Now, I see that Hussein would also like to speak.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us. Thank you, member of this council. I just want to say, as a Muslim, as Lebanese, I came to this country in 1981, lived in Philadelphia for some years, transferred to here to work at the Hood River Hospital as a pharmacist. Thank God I'm retired right now. I just want to say that I'm seeing this Hood River city growing from people coming from outside. Of course, some of you have encountered route drivers, route kids. The city is changing to the worst of it. Hood River used to be so great. When I came here in 1980, I traveled here. There was one gas station and there was the McDonald's. Maybe one or two cars behind the car I was in. Now there's thousands of cars going in and out. And this is my family. This is my wife. This is my daughter. That's my son, Ali. That's my sister-in-law, who's married to my twin brother, of course. And that's her daughter, and that's her daughter. Just to let you know, if you have the Nextdoor app, you look at it, people are already insulting the Muslim in Hood River. We are the only Muslims in Hood River. Fortunately for us, we have people who know us already and said the contrary to what the other people were saying about the Muslim people. So please open your eyes, open your ears. If you see something going like that and getting worse, please stand up for us, protect the people who live in this city. We are multiracial, multi-religions, and we like to keep it this way. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to discuss this tonight and at a place towards the end of the meeting called Mayor Call. We're not going to discuss it right now, but we will be discussing it later tonight. Certainly don't feel the need to stay just for that. You can watch it on YouTube if you'd like, but we will have some discussion later in the evening. Thank you for coming. Next, I have Locke Lidworth. While you're walking up, Danielle Mounts, you're speaking to the Urban Renewal Agency. Would you like to speak at the beginning, or would you like to speak when the topic comes up in the Urban Renewal meeting? That will probably be about 15 minutes from now.
That would be fine.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
whatever is easiest for everybody.
Thank
So
you, Danielle.
During the topic makes more sense.
Great, we'll do that. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, council, staff. This is really nice to be in front of this council as constituted. I think this might be the first time I've spoken to you in your new group. So welcome to those who I haven't spoken to before. I apologize. My hair's a little messed. I just came from the work site down in Wacoma. I was reading through the notes for tonight. So we're talking about the murals proposal. I believe that's tonight, right? So I just want to come down and say a few words about that. As I think most of you know, I am deeply invested in the historic nature of our community. I say that not just invested as a person who lives here and enjoys it, but somebody who's literally invested in a building that we're restoring to historic standards. Means a lot to the character of our city. Means a lot to my business that we have that and that we maintain that. I'm also the president of the Elks Club. The Exalted Ruler is what they call it over there. Right? Kind of a Fred Flintstone sounding name. But we brought this issue to staff a year and change ago because we wanted to do murals on our building, which is a largely concrete building unadorned. We wanted to have some murals on there that showed the history of this community in much the same way as you've seen done by Michelle Yamamoto, others, through here and in the Dalles. Very respectful, I think, a way that is additive to our community. There's been, I think, some really vigorous and respectful discussion about the merits of the kinds of rules that you're going to consider. I have to acknowledge that the concerns about content neutrality, and the difficulty of navigating that are understandable. Bad art is bad, and I've always said the antidote to bad art is more good art. But that's me. Some people have said they're concerned that content neutrality would require the accommodation of hate speech. I think I saw a note that said, what if somebody wanted to put a Confederate flag on the building, right, somewhere over here? We'd have to let them do that. And I'm here to assure you that this is a settled matter. The fact is that the city has the legal authority to prevent hate speech from falling under murals, content neutrality. And things like the Confederate flag are very well documented as symbols of hate speech. It could be, much like the swastika, you couldn't do it. It's not, the city could absolutely prevent that from going into an arts mural unless it was really, really substantiable as being integral to the art of the mural, right? So, and I think that'd be a very difficult standard to uphold. If we allow ourselves to have a rule that says only what was in these reference periods is what's going to be allowed to be represented in art, like a historic sign, for instance, which is something that we're doing, right? What we're essentially committing to is being a historic Disneyland in our downtown. And it's lovely, right? It's fantastic. I love being downtown. I love working downtown. I spend most of my waking hours downtown, right? But it's not vibrant, and it doesn't engage in the ideas of our community and the discussions in a way that embraces what artists have to say. And that's the great thing, is it may not always be art that appeals to us, but if it challenges us, if it helps to shed light on things that we're thinking and feeling in our daily lives, then even if it's not what we would have wanted to see on a given building, it really does add to the value of our lived experience day to day. So I hope you'll support today's ordinance. I might quibble with some of the specifics, like a 15-foot limit. Not sure I understand that, but on the whole, I think it's a very solid proposal. I'm here to support it, and I hope that you will too. So thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming along.
Of course.
When do you think people will be sleeping in your hotel?
So this is the question I get asked as much as anything else, is when are those doors going to open? There are a lot of things that can happen between now and then to impact that timeline. We are targeting a soft open before the end of the year. That said, please don't hold me to that. It's Jeremy Powell can and will do whatever he wants, and that definitely can impact our timelines.
Fair
So
enough. But the horse's mouth is the horse's mouth. Thank you very much.
absolutely. Thank
Good
you.
luck with that. Okay, so that's the public comment for City Council. We will now begin the Urban Renewal Agency meeting. We will recess the City Council, and I will hand the gavel to Chairman Zando.
All right, opening the Hood River Urban Renewal Agency meeting for February 12th. Any additions or changes to the agenda? There are not. No. Business from the audience. Danielle, this is a good time for you to come up and tell the agency what's on your mind.
Oh, sure.
You're good.
Okay, I'm sorry, green is go. So also, thank you to the council members and mayor for getting back to me. I sent an email and was quickly responded to, and that was greatly appreciated. So forgive me, some of these questions actually have been answered, but I wrote this last night, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go with it, just because I know it's a big concern of many people involving the 2nd Street and Oak Street traffic light. So I am Danielle Mounts. I'm the owner of Peron Cellars. I closed early so I could be here because I think this is a really important topic to small businesses in downtown Hood River. I've discovered some challenges I'm not even a year old, and I've discovered some challenges here in Hood River. The first challenge I'm going to just speak briefly on, and that is considering snow removal in the wintertime. I mean, we have had a significant amount of snowfall in the past decade. I think that something that at least we should consider for businesses and for locals. I'm very fortunate. I live locally, so I get to snowshoe down to work and be open. And there were many people that were grateful that I was open, luckily. But it was challenging for people to climb over mounds just to get to the shoveled sidewalk that took hours to shovel to get to the business. And now currently the challenge is this traffic light, which I'm all in favor for. I think it's been necessary for a long time. So I'm all for it. There's been some backup on this. I know originally it was going to happen after Labor Day, and then it got pushed back because of not wanting to deter business around the holidays, which is great and appreciated. But there are several businesses on the actual block streets between State and Oak and Cascade. I myself am one of them. I guess my questions are, how are people going to have access to these businesses? A construction worker was very gracious this morning and answered actually a few of my questions. And the big question was, how are purveyors supposed to make deliveries so that we can conduct business? And he said that there is someone that is directing traffic, which is awesome. So greatly appreciated. Another thing, is it possible to create a sign on these intersections with a list of the businesses on these blocks to let people know that we are open? Some of these businesses have been around for a very long time, and others are very young. Golden Goods, Voda, myself, we're the young ones, so we have a lot to lose. But I think everybody does in the long run. But so I have several events coming up. I'd like to know what to tell my wine club members and my patrons to my wine bar, and how they can feel comfortable coming to downtown Hood River without being inconvenienced. I mean, I know that's, it's going to happen, but also the time in which construction is being conducted, how will that affect us as far as noise and vibrations when people are in our businesses? How will that affect us? Abigail told me that, because of the hotel, they're doing it during the day, not to disrupt people that are staying in the hotel, which it completely makes sense. But these are just my concerns. And I know to me, 3 months seems like a lot for a traffic sign. I know there's a lot of logistics and a lot of things involved in it, but
I guess that's really it. So I thank you for everybody for like getting back to me right away, and forgive me, I'm a business just like hoping to make it to year 2. And so this is just a concern of mine. So that's it.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Keep the communications open with Abigail.
Oh.
Pass along the same information to any other anxious business owners that you might be running into. Talk to Visit Hood River about signage stuff. I think that all those are good things to do, and yeah, I wish it was done 10 years ago too. So
Yeah. You know that. Thank you.
is there anyone else that didn't sign up but would like to talk to the Urban Renewal Agency? And is there anyone online, Jen, that might want to do that? Okay. Seeing none, let's the first thing is the consent agenda. Move to approve the minutes from January 8th.
Second.
All right, we have a first from Grant, a second from Doug to approve the minutes from January 8th. Everyone in favor say yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Regular business items. Will take it away.
Thank you, Chair Zamiller, members of the Urban Renewal Agency Board. This first item is informational, just for discussion, no action requested. Wanted to go over the scope of work that we're going to be starting with the 5-year action plan for the Hood River West Side Urban Renewal District. So the West Side Urban Renewal District was just created last year and will collect its first tax increment in next fiscal year, 2025. And what this 5-year action plan is meant to do is take the plan itself, which is multi-decade, and zoom into the next 5 years and make it actionable and think about what we're going to do and when and how logistically. So I wanted to go through the tasks, see if you had any questions, and also learn just where you want touch points. So task number 1 ahead of everything is to get a public engagement plan together. The West Side Urban Renewal District is unique in that it is really set up as a funding mechanism for existing plans, whereas the Heights Urban Renewal District, the Downtown Urban Renewal District, the Waterfront, those all had project ideation as part of those plans. But the West Side is really plugging money into the Parks Multi-Jurisdictional Master Plan, the Affordable Housing Strategy, and the Transportation System Plan. So in that way, all those plans have been had a lot of public engagement already, and we want to be respectful of that past prior engagement as we implement them, which just adds a layer of complexity to this. So where we're going to be mostly focusing is getting a standard operating procedure for our public engagement as we get to these projects. So when we're ready financially to do an affordable housing project, telegraphing ahead of time in what languages, what other accessibility measures, who are the focused groups, target focus groups to talk to. I'm going to create a standard operating procedure more than prioritizing and scheduling the projects today, which is really just going to be done. Streets will be put in as there's a developer who needs the streets. Parks will be put in as we have money to do them. So really, when we have the money to do them, planning out how we're going to do our public engagement. Task number 2 is a housing constructability analysis. That's going to break the West Side into sub areas and look at what does it cost to develop there and what can be developed underneath our current zoning, and look at is there does it pencil? Does it even pencil to say land was free? Could you build anything on the West Side? Or are there certain places where the public infrastructure constraints are such, the geography is such that nothing is going to happen without some sort of intervention, and quantifying objectively what that cost is. So we're following the model of Newport, Oregon did this, and we're going to do the same analysis. And I think that's going to really help guide us into having the correct and targeted incentives and knowing where to target our public infrastructure investments, where it opens up the most amount of developable land.
So it's defining what carrots are gonna have the most value as the market opens up, right?
Correct. Mhm. Task number 3 is a financial capacity analysis and project sequencing. That more than others is just really zeroing on those next 5 years as opposed to the multi-decade financial plan that substantiated our overall maximum indebtedness of 146 million. That's for the entire life of the plan. We're going to look at more what would be financially feasible here in this next 5 years. Task number 4 is again be highly influenced by that constructability analysis. And it's to be a construction incentive program. This is a strategy that was a recommendation in the affordable housing strategy that was adopted, was to have an incentive for that missing middle housing. So housing affordable between the 80% to 120% area median income that is not being market produced and is not being directly subsidized by the city or the agency. So 780 Rand Road is going to be affordable at 60% of area median income and less, and we've directly provided free land, other direct subsidies. But this constructability analysis will look at, is there any lighter touch tweaks that we can make that will just make a developer at least ambivalent between building maybe a house that's going to come on the market at over $1 million and instead do something that's smaller, more modest, more naturally affordable without being fully on the spectrum of regulated affordable. And then task 5 is setting up the key equity and performance metrics. How do we know that we're moving the needle? How do we know that we're making progress? So looking at probably income distribution, who's living in the district, who's being left out. Are we driving development faster than would have happened otherwise? Are we moving forward projects? Defining those in an objective way that we can measure our progress against, and setting that from the outset is what that task is about. So those are the 5 tasks, and we'll get this work is expected to last through May. And with that, just answer any questions you have.
Just real quick, what's the schedule? When do you come back again? In May? Is that what you're saying, or on this topic?
Well, I did want to ask where I do expect to bring this in a piecemeal fashion. So when we have a construction incentive program that we think is ready to go, we'll bring it to you. When we have a public engagement plan that's ready to go, we'll bring it to you. So I don't want to have everything wait and have a big reveal in May. But I don't have an exact timeline of when each one of these task deliverables will come to you.
All right. Since we have 3 or 4 folks on Zoom, let's go around the horn. Is that okay? Is Ben here as well? Okay. No. Okay. So Heather, I wrote you on the top, so you get the lead out.
Hi. Yeah, I don't have any questions for the West Side District at this point. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, thanks for the summarization, Will. It all makes sense to me.
I will thank you. Appreciate all the work, and I really am excited for task number 5. Good work, and excited to see things coming to fruition.
No, for me, you asked me a question. Thanks, Mark.
I live at the top of the Serpentine, and I've been there for 22 years, and for 18 years, there were no houses on the bottom curve of the Serpentine there because it was expensive. It didn't pencil, as we say. And then, now there's 3 and one's the lots for sale. I don't have a clear answer, but there's different arguments for what to incentivize, and I don't know the answer, but do we want is it smoothness of development, like we want all those areas of the West Side to develop, and therefore some challenging sites should get more subsidy, or that'll come later or never, or as you were describing it, I was thinking, well, golly, that's really an interesting policy question. I don't know the answer, but I'm eager to engage a little bit more in that conversation about do we provide infrastructure for the most difficult parcels, or do we provide infrastructure for the easiest parcels and get get some progress going. I guess you can run a horse race fast at the beginning and slow at the end, or vice versa. And anyway, that idea really came to mind as you were describing the choices. So I'm eager for more discussion about that.
Great, thank you.
Task 2, the housing constructability analysis. You mentioned that relies on current zoning as is. Is that correct? It's going to only rely on what we have as of the time of this analysis. No change to zoning code, no change to anything else.
No, once the model's created, I think there's the potential to run those sensitivity analyses, especially if we see that there's negative residual value. In other words, you could give land away for free and nothing would get built. We could run the model. It'd be easier, but that's not part of the scope right now.
Well, then the only thing Will and I had a talk, and I suggest that when we talk about just what he said is when we talk about pieces in pieces, not as trying to get your head around the entire thing. It's too much for a public process. So when we're going to talk about open space, let's talk about open space. When we're talking about the TSP for Cascade, those are nice sized pieces that are still not easy, but are nice sized pieces. So I certainly appreciate that part of the plan. Cool. I don't see any hands up. We're on we go.
Great. Okay. The next item in front of the board is an action item. There's a resolution to authorize me to purchase a piece of property in the Heights, 1217 May Street. This is one of the two properties most impacted by a potential roundabout at May and 13th. Through the process of the Heights Streetscape Plan, the property owners became aware of the vision for the Heights. They reached out to staff because they currently use this as an investment property for short-term rentals, and they want to know the timeline so that they could decide if they wanted to make additional investments into the property and get a return on investment for that. When we told them that, this is pending jurisdictional transfer, this is pending obtaining a lot of outside funding, that we really couldn't give them a solid timeline. They asked if we would be interested in acquiring the property and so that they could move their investment elsewhere. So we always prefer to work with voluntary willing sellers. So we entered into negotiations with the property owners and came to agreement at 10% over the appraised value, and also a closing that will be in next fiscal year so that it can be fully budgeted and not need a budget adjustment this year. So that was agreeable to both parties. This buying from a willing seller, even at 10% over the appraised value, is likely significantly cheaper than if we were to go through an eminent domain process in the future and all those associated legal costs. So we have a resolution if you approve of this path forward.
Cool. Anyone want to chat before we entertain a motion?
I move to adopt resolution 2024-URA-02, authorizing the urban renewal administrator to enter into an agreement to acquire 1217 May Street in the amount not to exceed $616,000, in addition to the customary closing costs.
I'll second. Again, we have a motion from Grant and a second from Doug. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say yes.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well, so motion passes.
Okay, next item is discussing whether or not to initiate a increase to the maximum indebtedness of the waterfront district. So we are approaching the last year of operation of the district. And so if we did want to extend the life of the district and increase its maximum indebtedness, now is our last chance to do it, which is why this item is being brought to you now to have a deliberate discussion and evaluation. In 2019, the stormwater line and the waterfront collapsed. which has initiated a multi-year project to replace the stormwater line, both on the waterfront, but then now also replace stormwater infrastructure in the downtown area to redirect water away from the waterfront district. That project is ongoing and about half done. Phase one, moving the pipe out of the sinkhole, was completed a couple of years ago. Moving the outfall of the stormwater line in the waterfront area is happening right now. And then we have 2 more phases to continue to move the water line into the roadway along Riverside Drive, and also all the downtown improvements. Through these years of this project, the cost estimates have moved significantly, and they may continue to do so. Until we get hard construction bids, we don't know how much each phase of this project are going to cost. The Urban Renewal Agency Board in 2020 passed a resolution saying that until the stormwater line project was paid for, all remaining maximum indebtedness of the waterfront district would be applied to the project. And the reason for that being that this was not expected in the construction improvement plan. This was not built into our citywide utility rates. And so if the Urban Renewal Agency picks up this cost, it protects citywide capital improvement plans. It protects citywide ratepayers, which obviously has trickle-down effects to housing affordability, which has been a major goal. So today, that with federal funds, state grants, urban renewal funds, the full funding mix, as is today, the project is roughly paid for, roughly fully funded at current construction cost estimates. But if the project increases in cost and we have not increased the maximum indebtedness of the waterfront district without any other source of outside funding, project increases would default to the stormwater utility. So because the Urban Renewal Agency Board passed a resolution in 2020 saying that they wanted to dedicate and pay for this project with urban renewal funds before we lose the chance to increase the waterfront maximum indebtedness, I wanted to bring this topic to the board to ensure we had a deliberate decision. The way I've been phrasing this is as a risk mitigation or insurance policy, so to speak, to make sure that this project, if it does increase in cost, can be covered. If the project does not increase in cost and extra funds are collected, those can be either remitted back to the overlapping taxing districts, can be given back to the tax assessor to redistribute, or they can be used on other eligible waterfront plan projects. But that decision is probably for another day. Because we are under a really tight timeline to get this maximum indebtedness executed within this fiscal year.
Could you remind us how much longer would we be collecting the increment collections?
Increasing to the fully allowed 20% inflation adjusted amount that were allowed in under Oregon statute would add 2.15 million in maximum indebtedness and probably add about 2 years to the life of the district. And there's a table in your staff report showing the annual revenue to the overlapping taxing districts, what they would forgo for each of those 2 years.
Anyone want to chat?
I do.
Go ahead, Tim.
Did we ever determine whether the extra funds, if they're there, can be used for the wastewater treatment plant?
I believe that they can, because the wastewater treatment plant odor control measures there were specifically authorized and intended in the waterfront plan. General like capacity enhancements, no. But if it was associated with odor control measures, that's an approved plan project.
Is there any mechanism to reimburse some of the taxing districts prior to the end of the project?
We could do I believe we could do partial collections if we wanted to go that route. I would want to research it and make sure.
Right. Folks like the library district. Parks. Some of
Oh,
those-
I don't believe that we can we cannot specifically exempt a certain taxing district. We can't make them a preferential taxing district. But we can under collect and everyone doesn't take such a hit.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Right, Heather?
Hi, yeah, well, you know what I'm gonna say. I know that finishing the stormwater project is a priority and a necessity. But as a port representative, we would like to see any funds left over available to help with the infrastructure for Lot 1 development. We have a First Street realignment and a lot of stuff that is necessary to be shovel ready for future development. So I'm for increasing the maximum indebtedness in hopes that the future urban renewal meetings will approve any leftovers for the waterfront that the port is developing.
Can I ask you a question, Heather?
Yeah.
If we do this, does this affect the port's decision to not want to be involved in the urban renewal agency?
Yeah, I don't think it's not that we don't want to be involved. We just kind of wondered how much input is valuable from the port since we're moving away from the waterfront. But yeah, I feel like if we do increase the maximum indebtedness of the waterfront district, that the port would want to have a seat at the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gladys?
I'm in favor of increasing the maximum indebtedness.
Yeah, I mean, to Will's point earlier, I think it's a discussion for a later time, but I think we have to be pretty careful about at a later date, if we do have a surplus, what that goes to. However, yeah, I'm not really comfortable with the risk, being that we've had so many change orders in this project and the project, cost has gone up so much. I'm not comfortable with saying, yeah, we're about there. So I'm in favor of it as well.
Nothing to add.
Can I add one more thing?
Grant's gonna
Sorry.
say his piece.
Go ahead, Grant.
Thanks. As my perspective is with any fund generally that we have opened and allocated and have taken money from other taxing districts, I don't necessarily want to see funds become, for lack of a better term, slush funds that are increased and moved about at will or whim based on if something comes up. When this was initially area was initially created, the understanding was it had a defined scope, defined time, and upon completion of the scope of work, these other overlaying taxing districts would be made whole. I'm not happy that they are getting a little bit of the short end of the stick on this, just because of surprise sinkholes or eroding pipes or something like that. So I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of keeping it open just to fund something else yet to be determined. I'm more interested in getting this job done that we need to get done, hopefully in scope and on budget, and then returning this to the districts like we promised we would do when we opened this in the first place. However, I do understand the understanding construction costs and how variable they are right now, understanding the insurance policy that this represents. If we get bids and they come back and they are solid bids within budget, we're able to get this done on budget, I would be more interested in getting the rest of this money back to the overlying districts and as quickly as possible. Thanks.
And then just for me, this is a tax increment financing is a tool, and we want to use that to do things that we said when we established the district, and first and foremost, it's fixing the mess that we found out that we had, and I think that once we do that, we can talk about it. You know, to your point, there is a list of things that we were going to do with that district that we just stopped doing. And so I think that I agree with everyone saying that's for tomorrow to figure out, you know, where are we after we finish paying for the stormwater thing. But I think that that's a good future discussion. So I fully support doing this motion today. So with that said, Tim, if you were keyed up to do a motion, please.
No, I was gonna also mention that part of our pitch to the taxing districts, including the library district, was that they would be having these taxes come back onto their roll. So I think that conversation with them needs to be done in a thoughtful and careful way as we proceed.
Yeah, and will yourself and will be the lead for going to these other districts? Is that true? What does that look like?
Yeah, thank you. I didn't get into process. If you vote for this tonight, it's just stating intention. I will still need to develop all the materials to support a resolution that will then come back to the Urban Renewal Agency Board. And then we kick off a process of notifying not only overlapping districts, but the entire city through a mailing. And we'll have a 45-day review and comment period with the overlapping districts. And we'll follow roughly the same process that we did with the West Side plan. So we'll go offer to meet and give presentations to their boards. And any written comment that we receive will need to be publicly read and acknowledged and responded to before we can fully adopt and execute this maximum indebtedness increase.
Cool, thanks. If there's no other discussion, a motion would be nice.
I move the Urban Renewal Urban Agency Board support and increase the waterfront district's maximum indebtedness.
I'll second.
Motion from Doug.
I'll second.
Oh, thank you, Gladys. Sorry about that. So we have a motion from Doug and a second from Gladys to pass to continue the indebtedness. All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any no's? I vote yes as well. Motion passes. All right, then there was one more thing.
One more thing. Yes, so also I have an update about the development proposal over at the Stonehenge site. That included some, I didn't have any packet materials associated with this because the developer is still in pre-development and is treating most of their information as confidential trade secret. But you have heard from the Stonehenge property owners multiple times at your meetings. And so we did engage with the developer there who is wanting to build 168 units of rental housing that's going to be affordable at the 80 to 100% area median income. And we've worked with them to estimate their development costs, very similar and akin to the construction analysis just that we talked about as part of the 5-year action plan, but site specific. And he's ran his pro forma and asked for a subsidy in order to continue on. So I wanted to bring this information to you at a very high level and ask if you want us to continue negotiations. We have never directly subsidized or supported a housing development that was not regulated affordable and eventually in public ownership. So there's no program or policy to guide us at this point. And this ask is, while within the target area of the West Side Urban Renewal District, which part of its goal is to support housing production in the 80 to 100% AMI. This is certainly getting ahead of our construction incentive program, which will be a process to decide how much and think through that. But waiting for that misses the opportunity to build a sorely needed housing type in the city. So wanted to talk to you about your interest in kind of moving this ahead as is, continuing talking to the developer with the end result being bringing you back a development agreement that's fully negotiated, which would then also have to be approved by you in public session before it could happen. So staying at a very high level, the project, like I said, is affordable at the 80 to 100% area median income, but not deed restricted in any way. The unit sizes are between 600 square feet and 120 square feet, so they're just naturally middle income. And the finance director and I have looked through the pro forma. We believe the numbers are reasonable. We're not seeing anything out of ordinary that would be sandbagging in one way or the other. And the project is roughly about 300. The construction costs and soft costs are expected to be about $300,000 per unit to create, which for relative scale, 780 Rand Road is about $475,000 per unit. So I don't think they're inflating their construction costs is what I'm saying. But in order to obtain a reasonable return, which this developer has said is their kind of go, no go at a 7% return on cost, which given the interest rate environment and the risks that they're taking on developing this, it's probably not a outlandish or, it's a fairly reasonable rate of return to expect in order to take on this type of risk and development. In order to achieve that, they believe that they need $3.9 million in offsite infrastructure paid for, and then another $3 million in just direct subsidy to fill a gap in their pro forma. So that is way out of the ordinary of anything that we've discussed before. So I didn't want to continue on, but also didn't want to cut off negotiations for such a needed housing type without checking in with the board first.
Are those numbers aligned with like proportionate share for the intersection at Mount Adams and stuff, or is this beyond?
It includes Mount Adams.
Includes, but
not a full roundabout, but it includes a proportionate share of a traffic light there. Yep. And I should say one policy objective that this development helps us with is having a developer with a project ready to go and move helps us keep those intersection improvements top of mind for ODOT and helps us generate urgency and engagement with ODOT for intersection improvements that will eventually help the entire West Side District. So that's just kind of a side consideration.
Before I keep going, other questions for Will on this one?
Just to clarify, no deed restrictions.
No deed restrictions.
So no real guarantee.
Now, we haven't wanted to engage in really intense negotiations yet because this is just, so early in the process. It's potential we could push for that. We haven't been told no, period. But we also, just want to bring the rough numbers to you before really getting to that level.
Thank you.
Well, it feels like the kind of project that could be good bait for further outside funding to say, look, we're putting our commitment and our funds into this project. Hey, Governor, you need 36,000 units. Do we have, you can't estimate odds on these kinds of things, but does it feel like that at all? Is that on our mind as we discuss this, that it might lure outside funding to accomplish state goals?
I can't think of any funding source that would go towards non-deed restricted funding, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And this could be something where if we start making public improvements to the ODOT facility, maybe there could be some opportunities to generate funds for public improvements. Sorry, that's not, it's a hypothetical.
That's helpful, thank you.
Well, I think, if you're asking us, and it sounds like, clarify if I'm incorrect here, but it sounds like you're asking, can we continue the conversation? Is there anything that you need from us beyond continuing the conversation, certain terms or anything like that? Or is, because yeah, I mean, of course, the devil's in the details when it comes to all this kind of stuff that comes later, but what guidance do you need beyond, yes, continue conversation?
Sure. I guess I should say considerations are, if we really start engaging, it's going to be a significant amount of time, effort. There could be expenses involved. Obviously, we're talking about sums of money this large. We may even want assistance from a development consultant. I'd say the developer does not want to engage unless there's the clear possibility of this coming to a successful conclusion for them. Time is money, and they want to be putting their time and efforts where they're getting traction. So, I'd say if we're serious, we should be ready to really spend some staff time and potentially some consultant time. And we should be good faith partners to, our negotiating partners, saying that this isn't within the realm of possibility. And we really do want to create a development agreement.
Understood. And my second question is, are you seeing this done anywhere else in Oregon that's got a similar sort of workforce housing need? Anywhere, any other communities to look to see how this is going in their neck of the woods?
Yeah, I do know that this particular developer received a 15-year, I believe it was 15-year total tax exemption from the city of Bend for a project in Bend.
Thank you.
Was that a hand up, Heather?
It was me. It was me. Thanks, Will. I'm in full support of pursuing these opportunities. We are in desperate need of housing. For me personally, I'd like to see more of a guarantee that it will be 80 to 100% AMI before committing resources and time and energy into having this come to fruition. So I'd like to see more of a guarantee as you're all discussing those details that they will be 80 to 100% AMI.
Well, as I'm thinking it through, I was wanting to check some numbers in my head and my gut. You said $6.9 million in subsidy, is that right?
Correct.
And 168 units?
Correct.
So according to my silenced iPhone, that's $41,000 per unit. So that makes me think, is that appealing to us? And it's 41,000 is not that big a number for the scale of problem we have and the priority of our housing to invest that amount of tailwind into a project that could yield desperately needed worker housing. Yeah, I'd say let's keep talking.
Great. My next question is, this is a proposal for a private developer to receive public money for private benefit. They are going to unload the units and sell them to the buyers. The buyers will be whatever they are, doesn't matter. Are we going to cut $41,000 checks to everyone who builds a home in Hood River? That's my thinking. That's where my mind goes with this, is if we open the door to subsidize private development, no matter what the type of unit it is, unless it has public ownership, public benefit in some form or fashion.
I'd say limiting it to 100% AMI is public benefit. So find a way to do that.
That's one debate we could have. Yes.
Right.
We are in such a position though where we need different partnerships and we need to think outside of the box than what we've traditionally done in the past. And it sounds like this is an opportunity for us to continue learning of those partnerships that can take place, and that we might have to give a little and they're going to have to give a little as well. And how do we meet halfway so that we can house those individuals that are keeping our businesses afloat, because we're going to continue having issues like some of our surrounding cities where folks are moving and businesses are having to shut down because they cannot afford to retain their staff.
I would just say real quick and then back to Paul. certainly a sense of sticker shock on my part, but I also don't have a good sense of whether that's a valid response or not. So can we, who do we have in our expert list, on our team to say, no, this is really a good investment versus, that's crazy talk. I'd like to know that. I certainly wouldn't want to hang up just on a gut feeling. So that's where I am. Paul.
It gets back to the constructability question, which I love that word. I developer can't afford to build anything but the $1.3 million house. That's always a disappointing response that I've heard many times. And if 41,000 a unit means that people are building 600 square foot homes, that's not to be dismissed out of hand.
So I'm just reading the table, and it sort of says keep going. Some carefulness probably, and it's going to have to answer these questions at some point.
Great. Yeah.
Is that fair enough? Does anyone, you can all call BS on me.
Yeah, I understand. If we're talking about spending $6.9 million towards this one project in subsidy, what else are we putting on the shelf for the public benefit that we're not going to fund?
I'd argue that the most important thing that the public needs right now is, of course, housing. So
I understand that housing is the top of our priority and we want more affordable housing for everyone in the community. I understand that very well.
So why not explore it?
I don't think we're signing a check today. We're saying, tell us more.
Right. Sure.
Correct. Yeah. I'm sorry. I've been at a very high level with these numbers. When we have a full development agreement, we'll need to be much more open with the books and be able to come through the numbers quite a bit more. But there's a challenge that, right, you're asking who do we have on staff and how can we judge this? That is really the construction incentive program and the constructability analysis. Those are the two methods that we have to answer those questions. And unfortunately, this is just has jumped ahead as a hot, ready to go developer ahead of those two efforts. Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. All right, we're going to do a lightning round of any comments by agency members. Yeah.
None.
Gladys.
None, thank you.
Tim.
Oop.
Heather.
None for me.
All right, and that's a wrap for the Urban Renewal Agency meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to the City Council meeting. We will open with any additions or corrections. Abigail?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just one quick correction. Under the action items, I'm listed as the main presenter, but Amy Schlappe from CAT is here and Kevin Greenwood from the Port of Hood River. So when we get to those, you can call on them instead.
Great.
Thank you.
Kevin and Amy, thanks for your public service work and for being here tonight. So we'll move on to our presentation from Mike Shen, speaking of public service. Thanks for coming, Mike. Touch the edge of the circle so that it turns green. There we go. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. You ready for a lighter topic? Okay. I'm representing the Lions Club again. I'm not here to give you money today. I'm here to ask for an in-kind contribution for families in the park. And we're in the process of getting sponsorships now for the summer. And the city has been a sponsor the last 2-3 years, I think. And I thought it was a pretty good relationship. Abigail's been there. Paul, I think you've been out there schmoozing with the people. And I think it's a good PR thing for the city to do. Now, that's my personal opinion. But if you don't want to be a sponsor, we'll pay the permit fees and we'll do all of that. And we're happy to do that. But I think it's a good relationship to have with the city. We're talking 2,000 plus people every night there. And I think it's good for the city to be visible and be a part of that. So it's up to you, but it's a simple request. It's an in-kind request. We're not asking for any cash. We're just asking you to waive the fees so we can proceed without doing that. And so I'm sure Jen would be able to let me know whatever you decide. You don't have to tell me right now.
I just checked, this is a 5 Thursday year.
We dropped one though. And the reason for that is because last year it was a 5 Thursday event and then they started school early. And that really hurts. It's a school night, it's a Thursday night. And so that, all the families that have little kids don't come. So we thought, hey, we had our best band the last night and the worst crowd because of that. So even though there's 5 Thursdays in August this year, we backed it up. So it's going to be end on the 22nd before school starts. So does that make a difference for what you're going to do?
I always thought it was fun when it was 5.
It is, but it's a lot more work and get in money. I can tell you that. Well, not for you, no.
Mike, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Do you want to discuss it now or at the end?
No, just do it later and Jen can let me know what you decide. That's fine.
Great, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Grant says we're going to talk about it right now.
Okay.
You have a suggested motion in your
I
packet.
move to approve the request to waive 2024 permit and park usage fees for families in the park events.
Moved by Paulson.
Second,
Second by Stefano. Discussion.
I would like to see just more marketing in more than one language, and partnering with other partners that can help with 30% of our county overall identifies as Latino or Spanish speaking, and really want to make sure that we are being inclusive of a variety of groups that live here within the gorge.
Good point, because that's been brought up before and we've talked about that. When I was I never thought I'd be doing this again, quite frankly, because when I retired, I figured it was over, but here I am doing it again. But we did do that. We included the Hispanic community before, and they didn't show up. We tried everything possible to get them to come, and they didn't show up. So, there's a crossover there, that has been difficult. And maybe you could help us with that, but it has been brought up. We thought about bringing in some of these Spanish type of musics that would draw them in, but maybe next year we'll consider that. And I can't ignore the fact that what you're saying, it's true, very true. So
I'd be more than happy to connect you with existing, like the Hood River Latino Network that does a fantastic job and they have great turnouts every year. So I'd be more than happy to help coordinate just to make sure that we have.
Well, thanks. Yeah, when I was on the fair board, we did they still do that. They do a Hispanic Friday night, and that's well attended. But for some reason, they haven't connected with the Families in the Park concerts. I can't figure out why. But we won't give up on it.
Absolutely. Would love to help partner in making sure that other folks are engaging in different culture and music. I mean, music brings us all together. So I'd be more than happy to help.
Yeah, your comments are right on. Yeah, appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you. More deliberation before vote. All in favor?
Hi.
Yes. Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thanks, Mike.
We welcome you as a sponsor again. Look forward to it. All right. Jen, just keep me posted on all that. So thank you. Appreciate it.
I just want to make sure it's not a mistake. We have nothing on the consent agenda.
Yeah.
All right, action items, intergovernmental agreement with CAT and bus passes for downtown. Amy.
Hi, everyone. Amy Schlappe, Executive Director of Hood River County Transportation District. And I am here to discuss the draft intergovernmental, the IGA that I have worked on with staff. We are asking for a continuation of the Downtown Employee Pass Program, which it would extend from date signed until June 30th, 2025. It would be for 150 passes that the city would purchase for downtown business employees. And that would be 150 passes per year, so $6,000 total per year. And I
$40 a pass.
Yes, correct. And the big thing to know is that they are now on a complete annual basis. So in previous years, it was just good for a calendar year. The Gorge passes are now good for the end of month for a full year from then. And they are, just a reminder, they are good for Columbia Area Transit Services, but also the Link Services and Mount Adams Transportation Services and Skamania County Transportation Service as well. So fixed route services all throughout the gorge. I do have a couple of stories I wanted to share from some downtown employers. One is from Oregon E-Bikes. The service manager uses bike racks on the Columbia Gorge Express and visits family in Portland 4 to 5 times a week. The ability to bring bikes on our buses is greatly appreciated by them. Seasonal employees and hard to find bike mechanics who live in Portland use the Columbia Gorge Express frequently. And it is a huge contributing factor to their ability to hire these individuals. Asking a mechanic to commute that far with limited housing options in the area is a big ask, and their ability to offer employees a free pass definitely helps them to hire. Another one is from Sushi Okalani. They have employees who live outside of the downtown area, and they utilize our system to avoid parking fees and logistics in that area. They also use it for recreation to get to and from Mount Hood Meadows during the great snowstorm. One employee without a car used it to get to essential services, but also to and from work. So just wanted to share those stories. I also wanted to share some data from previous years that we have offered this program. So last year we did give 91 passes, which is much lower than the 150 that I am asking for. I will say that my understanding is we had given all 150 passes away. And then when I was doing some data collection, I realized that we had not given that full amount. I still think the 150 per year makes sense because of the fact that this pass is a full year and not just good for a calendar year in the past. We will also be rolling over. So the variance between the passes that we gave away and that you've already bought, those will be rolled over, and that will go on for preceding years. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Amy.
Yes.
I'll start off by saying I work for Mount Adams Transportation Service, so I probably have a conflict of interest here because this would be city money going to my employer. It doesn't have any, I don't drive that bus, but just saying. Questions for Amy? Right.
Can you explain to me the genesis of why or how this agreement came to be and why it's focused on the downtown?
Actually, Will might have a little bit more information. This was something that was started in 2021. And my understanding is the intent was to help people with the increased parking costs.
Yeah, I can explain some of that. So we moved to a more market-based model for parking permits to our parking lots. So we decided that if we were sold out, typically all of our fees are just increased by inflation every year. But in order to meet the adopted, I think it's 85% rule that we adopted as part of the parking study, we wanted to, if a parking lot was sold out, increase it by $5 increments rather than just inflation until there was parking permit availability in our parking lots. And in order to make sure that people weren't just people who needed to work downtown weren't just priced out by doing that kind of market-based approach, we dedicated that revenue stream that came from the increased parking fees over and above the inflation adjustments to make sure that anyone who worked downtown could have a free bus pass.
Okay, and that helped to define the borders on this map, basically to where the parking areas are metered.
I can't remember how, we probably use just a typical downtown district map. I'm not sure if it had to do with where the meters were.
I am happy to extend those perimeters if that is the course of action that you'd like. We have just used it because that's what we've used historically.
Doug? Mark?
Do we have a sense from the 91 tickets that we sold last year and however many the year before to that those are conflicting downtown? I mean, you can look and see how often that person is writing and stuff. I don't know if you've had a chance.
So unfortunately, I can't. The technology that we have doesn't allow me to do that. I am going to be sending you guys a little bit more information with the previous years, but I will also include on that how the city route, which is the service that services the downtown area, how it has increased over the years, and it has increased pretty substantially. So I can't say that it is definitely increasing to ridership, but I would say that it's pretty safe to say so.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I guess I would ask that you work with Visit Hood River and the city to make sure that we're re-publicizing and stuff, and like, you know, we don't want you parking downtown, basically.
Yeah.
And after that, I think this is great. Is it up to 150 or is it the 6,000 and then does that make sense?
So the 6,000 pays for 150.
Right. So if you sell 90 again,
we'll just keep rolling it over.
got it. Okay, thank you. That's all
I guess that just brought something to, like, how do you know they're not just doing it for, you know, the recreational sort of element of it? Like, you know, is there
I don't necessarily know. From my perspective, though, the more that they are using some of these other services like Columbia Gorge Express and Gorge to Mountain, I have found that actually increases our Hood River City route as well. I think the Gorge to Mountain Express and the Columbia Gorge Express are great ways for people to dip their toe into public transit, give it a try, and they get more comfortable with it. And then I've found that more people will use some of our other services as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There's a concept called negawatts that I always liked, which is sometimes it's cheaper for a utility provider to promote the idea of conservation among the users than it is to build another power plant. And so like they make money on negawatts. Similar, like we haven't yet found our way to build more parking, but if we can get people out of we can remove customers for the parking demand by getting them on buses, that's a real parking win for us. It does occur to me that there might be an argument that since you gave away 91 last year, that there were 59 left over, and maybe this year we would fund you for 91, but just an idea. Any other questions on this topic, or I suppose, let's see, action items, so we would need a motion.
I have I guess a comment to make. I like the idea of expanding this area. I also echo Counselor Zan Miller. Amy, please connect with Visit Hood River. How do we make sure that we're marketing this appropriately so that folks are aware and normalizing using public transportation? So maybe some success stories of those employees that have been successfully riding, that would be nice to share, just to normalize that we want to support multi-module transportation options in the Gorge, in full support of this service. And I was also hoping that you could talk a little bit more about, in the past, the city has also supported passes for specific community agencies. And I would love for you just to mention some of the grant opportunities that you come across to help with that need, because you're not asking for additional support for those passes.
Yeah, so thank you for mentioning that. So I worked really hard with our statewide transportation improvement fund advisory committee to make sure that there are more funds available through our statewide transportation improvement fund formula funds for low-income passes. So we have been able to create a pot of funds that will just consistently pay for those passes. And so that's why I'm not bringing that ask to you all. However, if those funds are not accessible in 3 years' time or longer, that I can come back and maybe revise my request to also include those. But I'm trying really hard to look for other sources for those funds as well. So
I would entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the city manager to sign an IGA with CAT to provide bus passes to eligible downtown employees.
Moved by Rivera.
Second.
Second by Stepina. Further discussions?
Yeah, if we're for discussion in the future, if we're going to talk about looking at this map and expanding it out, so more businesses are eligible in our city, not just necessarily the ones downtown, to your idea, Paul, about megawatts, that would, I generally open up the pool for everyone to have a CAT bus pass, potentially get around town, do all everything they want to do around town, work, whatever, without isolating the benefits to only people who work downtown. So, yeah, that might be a future idea that we consider, but that would be a much.
Yeah, it's a different set of benefits that we would reap from further out. A worker out of further out business. It's not a parking meter. It's not a parking congestion issue, but there are certainly benefits, and I would encourage that broader discussion. Amy, I'm sure you could help us with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, the other reason why I brought it up is also we understand how much space is consumed with parking. In terms of buildable space, surface space, water, all of that stuff. And in consideration of additional space for housing, human use, that may open up additional opportunities to meet the rest of the goals that we have on a higher level.
One thought I'm having specifically about that is Commissioner Babbitts and I talked some about trailhead parking when the historic Columbia River Highway arrives at our western portal. And if somebody could take a bus and ride their bike, that would free up desired space right at that pinch point. So that's a good example of what you're talking about. Okay.
I can also imagine that, to Grant's point, you know, if I mean, yeah, decreasing parking downtown is a great thing, but also increasing ridership. And I assume if more people are taking it and more people are taking it in the Heights, et cetera, that's just going to allow you to operate more. So, yeah, you're good, Grant.
Anything else on this topic? Call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
And next we have letters of support for Amy and for Kevin. So take it away, you guys.
Sure. Should I go ahead and
Go ahead. Thanks off.
All right. So again, thank you for having me here today. Kevin and I are working on a couple of potential projects together, and we wanted to come to you and ask for a general letter of support. We are submitting a couple of applications in the next month.
Before the end of the month.
Before the end of the month, yes. Well, yeah, that's a thing. And we were hoping for a general letter of support. We're still finalizing some details. And then since I was coming to you to talk about that, I was also hoping to talk about a couple more CAT specific ones and getting a letter of support for those two. And I will submit a draft letter to Abigail. But specifically, so for CAT, we are looking at a transit site development grant. So we're going to be applying for funds to to relocate our park and ride near the CAT station, as well as a future Lot 1 transit center, which will allow us to make our current park and ride a bus storage facility that can accommodate larger vehicles and project management. These have all been identified as needs in our 2023 transit master plan, and we are going to be applying for federal 5339 bus and bus facilities discretionary program funds for that. It'll be several phases, but we are hoping to create a much larger mobility hub at Lot 1 with a partnership with the port to do that. And it will accommodate 2+ buses, have shelter, seating, public access close to public restrooms, also potentially a customer kiosk and other things like that. The intent is to make it where we can make that our major hub. So the majority of all of our buses will stop there, but also the other transportation providers in the area can stop there as well. And we can have ease of transfers from their services to our services. Also, potentially, it could be a stop for the Mount Hood Meadows during the winter for them to stop there, but also potentially a Greyhound or Flixbus as well. So it could be a great transit center for the community.
And Abigail, that's the first item on in the packet, right? Amy was just speaking to.
That's right.
transit site development. Okay, I'm
Correct.
just trying to keep with the program here. Great, thank you.
Yes, great. Should I continue on the CATS ones or that? Okay. And then the other CAT specific ones is we are going to be applying for 2 or 3 new large 35-foot plus vehicles for our Gorge to Mountain Express service, which will also help bring in more business and be an economic driver for the community. I am also going to be applying for a trolley. It'll probably no longer be pink. I'm hoping for purple, but it will be low floor, and we will be using funds that the city partnered with us on a while ago as match. So, and then also an increased demand response capacity in the Upper Valley.
Sorry, can I interrupt?
Yes.
I would be super interested. I went skiing this weekend and I was driving up with my friend and here came the Meadows bus. And then I was driving down with my friend and here came the Meadows bus. Like, oh man, that's really frequent. So I would love to know any kind of utilization data you had for Gorge, the Gorge Express, the Portland, the Mountain. Like, I would be just really interested to know how many fannies and seats there are and whatnot.
I would love to send that to you. We recently received praise from ODOT. We are actually one of few transit agencies where our ridership is above pre-pandemic levels. So
congratulations.
I would love to share that with you. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, I love talking about that. So thank you. That's a great talking point. And then the other one is we are applying for funds to increase demand response service in the Upper Valley, as well as, which would allow us to make our current deviated fixed route that for the Upper Valley into a fixed route service only, which would allow it to be more convenient and dependable. But it would allow us to do better service to folks who cannot use the fixed route service in the Upper Valley and bring them into town for services, which is why I was asking for your support for this grant as well.
Carry on.
Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, any questions for Amy before we move to the?
I do.
Oh, sorry, yes, Tim, thanks.
Yeah, any thought, Amy, about electrifying the buses you're applying the grants for?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Do you, for the vehicles that you're applying for?
Yes.
Not to electrifying them?
No, and the reason being is because of the service that they would be used for. So the Gorge to Mountain service is notoriously hard on vehicles, but also with the weather, it's been proven that electric vehicles, it can be very difficult for them to perform in those type of conditions. So we are going for diesel buses on those. They will also be built to accommodate ski equipment easier than our current buses.
Okay, thank you.
And we will also, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
And we'll also use them for our other seasonal services and allow us to meet demand for summer seasonal service or for other services where a bigger vehicle is needed.
Difficulty with battery capacity in the cold or with traction or?
All of the above.
Both?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, thanks.
Any thought about looking into renewable diesel as far as a fuel?
I have thought about it. I have not gotten the chance to really dive into it yet, though, no.
Okay, because that probably would help a lot with respect to the carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Amy? Carry on. Thanks.
Right. Let's see. Now I think I have a presentation. Is that, should I share the screen? Okay.
Here. Yep, and now maybe this here's one more. Yep. We've got
Let's
it.
see. All right, can everybody see the presentation?
We should see it on the screen.
Let's see.
Not yet.
Oh, we can.
There we go. Let's try that.
One more step. Yep. There you go.
Okay, that looks promising. All right, my name is Kevin Greenwood. I'm the executive director at the Port of Hood River. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. Just wanted to give you an update and ultimately ask for a request for letters of support for a few grant applications to design and construct a roundabout on the waterfront at Second and Riverside. Let's see here. That's what I'm working on here. Oh, thank you very much. So just a quick overview, just want to talk about the roundabout. That's a little bit of a change. If you recall in past years, there had been talk about an East Anchor Way extension. The commission using a $500,000 grant that it received did a little proof testing on whether that East Anchor Way extension would actually provide the most amount of buildability into the future. It was actually determined after a KPFF and DKS study that actually a roundabout would provide remove any restrictions in development on the waterfront. And so that is really the nexus for this conversation. So we all know where lot 1 is. It's the big vacant lot down on the waterfront. A lot has been studied on this over the decades, and the purpose of this is to really start building something down there and not studying. So really the purpose and need at this point is that the current configuration is eventually going to hit some limits regardless of what's developed at lot 1. I know there's been a lot of interest in the light industrial concepts, but I think this current commission is really interested more in some kind of a community concept or something aside from just more office buildings down on the waterfront. So this opportunity would remove traffic limitations, open up opportunities for recreational retail along Nichols Basin. Amy mentioned the possibility of having a little ticket kiosk. If you recall, there's a 7,000 square foot commercial overlay along Nichols Basin. The ticket booth that Amy was referencing could be part of that. This would also help the port with a little bit of sustainability after the tolls are no longer used for non-bridge related activities in 2026. And we think that the net income from this, the opportunities along Nichols Basin really can generate some additional revenue to help our waterfront parks and recreation and the O&M related to that. In addition, there's the industrial truck traffic that after it comes off of I-84 goes to the west part of the west side at Ryan's and HDR. And so this is actually an opportunity to increase the flow of traffic to the west and try to make that a little smoother for those businesses. And currently right now, there really isn't much in the way of a transit facility in a very high use area. So that is another, those are the lists of the needs for the project. So we have developed an updated P&L, if you will, for the project. The overall project is about 6.5 million. We're currently under contract with KPFF for engineering. That's part of that 750. But we are planning to apply for at least 4 grant applications here. One at least in this next month, but over the next couple of months through the congressionally directed spending opportunity, infra and raise are other opportunities. And then we also did receive an EDA Public Works and Economic Development Fund grant of 1.9 million. So that's already been obligated. So the expenses are there for the construction for both the roundabout and First Street. And so, and these are very planning levels. So there is a hefty contingency with that as well. So schedule, we are looking at doing the preliminary design right now. end of this year, get that complete. But we really want to see this project done by 2027. And really, it's the goal of the commission to accelerate that much faster if these funding opportunities come to fruition. So really, the benefits are to increase the safety between the industrial and recreational traffic on the waterfront. Noted the 7,000 square feet of commercial activity along Nichols Basin. Really improves some of the aesthetics with some improved parks and rec amenities along Nichols Basin, along the event center. Improve some of the stormwater collection pre-treatment around surrounding Lot 1 as well. Improving that traffic flow and really following the guidance in the ODOT IAP, which is the Interchange Access Management Plan. And really allows more options to the sustainability for the port sustainability once the bridge project is handed over. And so far, we have received strong support from agency partners, businesses, and recreational users over this concept. And really, I think the highlight in a lot of ways is the addition of a transit facility. If you recall, in the East Anchor Way extension, the transit facility was going to be in the mid-block of that project. Likely, the transit facility would be on the east side of First Street along Nichols Basin, so the buses would come through. Not sure exactly where along there, come in, but people will come off, see some kiosks, and then also see the direct access to the recreation. So it could be a really nice jump off spot for those people using transit. We've met with a number of folks to date, including 2 meetings with city staff. And so really what we're asking for is a letter of support from the city in our congressionally directed spending requests, infra, raise, and frankly, any other opportunity that comes our way. So we're hoping to get kind of an umbrella approval. And then as we draft the letter to meet the needs of those specific grant applications, we can fine tune those and then hopefully get the mayor's approval working with your staff. So with that, thank you very much for the opportunity and really appreciate Amy being here as well. So if there's any questions about the project, I'd love to answer the questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Questions for Kevin? Can't see you yet, Gladys and Tim. Okay, I see you again, Gladys. Any questions for Kevin?
I did have a question. Yeah. What other agencies or who else is supporting a letter of support?
So right now we are meeting with the next Tuesday, the county commission. You're our first meeting. We'll be meeting with CAT and also reaching out to ODOT's technical team. For the congressionally directed spending, there is an expectation that the lead agency write a technical letter that it's in compliance.
Any others for Kevin? Mark? No. Good to go. Great. I would entertain a motion.
I move to direct staff to prepare letters for the mayor's signature in support for the CAT and port projects as presented.
Second. Moved by Paulson, second by Zan Miller. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Bring home the funding. That takes us to mural code. Typically at this moment, we take a break. How's everybody doing? Break or carry on? Carry on. Jackie, thank you.
All right, good evening, Mayor and councilors. Tonight I'm here to continue the discussion on mural code and present you with a first draft of mural code. Last November, I came before you with community feedback on what we were hearing in terms of what the community would like to see in terms of mural code. And then you analyzed that, you gave us your recommendations. And then we worked with our city attorney to draft chapter 1803 original art murals, which would be under Title 18 signs and other similar regulations. And within this, I just want to highlight a few things that we would like your feedback specifically on. One thing that we heard at back in November was the 15-foot height limit, and we incorporated that, but that was sort of an example of a height limit. And for reference, I think the room in here and in the side room are the same height. However, we measured the height of the building in the other room, that is 12.5 feet. So 15 feet would be a little bit taller than in here. So just want to reference that. And the purpose of limiting the height was to prevent things like it kind of being used as a billboard or a sign and visible from a far distance, and keeping it more geared towards the sort of experience of people on the ground. So that's one item that we would like your feedback on. The other one was in terms of limiting murals in the historic district and on Main Street, or not Main Street, but our Main Street, which is Oak Street. Specifically, we included a 75-foot buffer from the center line. So on page, I think it's the last page of the packet, 21 of the packet, you can see what that would look like, and that is where murals would be excluded. So feedback on if you think that 75-foot number is adequate, as well as we went along with for the community notice and community feedback. We used 250 foot from the area of the tax lot of being noticed, which is what we use in the city for land use decisions. In the downtown area, that encompasses about a full block, maybe a little bit less than a full block in some of the longer residential streets. So if you have any feedback there, that would be appreciated. As well as, there is language there revolving the downtown historic district. And did we hit the mark on that, or would you like to see anything different? And so with that, I'll pass that on, or if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Jackie. And I see Dan has appeared magically, as he often does. Thank you, Dan. I actually have some input on this. I'll start with your permission. I was feeling frustrated by the detailed sort of arcaneness of this conversation. Like, oh my gosh, this is one of those First Amendment issues that we're just going to have to talk about forever. Subsequently, I've been more in touch with our dedicated volunteers on our Landmarks Review Board, and I've changed my thought about it, which is, oh my gosh, this is exactly the kind of thing we've asked these experienced, interested people to weigh in on. And I am interested in being quite a bit more restrictive in what we permit in our beautiful historic downtown, more in what I believe is in alignment with what the Landmarks Review Board had recommended to us. And specifically the idea of murals are used to kind of perk up or energize a downtown. And I've been here 24 years and I can't think of the last time I thought, you know what Hood River needs is more energized down. I think we've achieved that and been preserved beautifully, and I don't want to be the generation that wrecks it. So I'm inclined to be quite a bit more restrictive and draft code that's more in alignment with the recommendations of our Landmarks Review Board.
Which, to clarify, would exclude murals from the historic downtown.
Say that again, Jackie.
Which, just to clarify, so that would exclude, that recommendation was to exclude murals from the downtown historic district.
Right, I was thinking of it in different parts, but I guess that sums it up, doesn't it? There's the Oak Street versus other parts of downtown. There's the contributing versus non-contributing buildings. And then the particulars of the heights and whatnot would be related. So that's right. That would be a more similar, a more succinct statement, just exclude. And then I remember Abigail in discussions, either way, we need to do something because someone was saying it's not clear that our current code excludes murals. And so if we wish to exclude murals, we don't simply need to not adopt a permissive code, but we need to edit our current code in a way that makes clear our rule. So that was, thank you for listening to my TED. Others,
I've got a question for Dan.
go ahead, Jim.
So can you, did you hear Mr. Litwer's statement?
Yes.
Is that true or not?
What part of it? He was just was pretty
You can,
directed.
we have, or somebody has the authority to ban the type of murals that go up.
Or specifically hate
speech?
speech?
Not that I'm aware of. You are limited to content neutral regulations, reasonable time, place, and manner regulations. And over the years, I've heard of other jurisdictions, other countries that when these things come up, they immediately pass laws banning hate speech. You can't do that under our Constitution.
I just wanted confirmation of that.
Yeah, because I mean, I have my idea of what hate speech is, and you have yours, and
I agree. So,
yeah, time, place, manner.
Thank you.
Mark.
I do want to, I missed the last meeting. I was gone when you guys talked through the draft, but this wasn't the thing that the council thought up out of the ether, right? I mean, it kept coming back to us with requests to do something on the mural across from the Union Building on that wall below the Elks lot. We spent tons of hours doing something, and it ended up being really cool. And I think that it aids things. And so I remain supportive of a mural code, even that could have bits and pieces within the downtown core. I completely agree that anything on the historic register or something that maybe is imminently or could be on the historic register could be waved off. But Elk is a building hoping that its ears could be turned into a purse, if you know what I mean. So I think that there are opportunities in the downtown core where we're letting artists do something cool would be nice. I had expressed that I was nervous about First Amendment stuff and how are we going to make sure that it's cool and stuff. And I've told myself to chill out a little bit, and just looking around cities that have creative murals, and I was just in Spain and Portugal, and that's really beneficial, I think. So I'm supportive with protections on the historic building stuff.
Great. I have a question on what you just said, Paul. You think downtown is energetic enough? Why? What level of energy in your mind is enough? Like can I get what you mean by that?
I guess it's best summarized. People say, "Oh my gosh, it's so cute!" Like we have a definite vibe and attractiveness, and it's not like a funny like Leavenworth. Let's make it ancient, old timey German. Like it's a downtown that is blessed with many 100+ year old buildings, and they have been restored and preserved, and it feels authentic and natural and prosperous to me.
What if someone else doesn't share your perspective?
They can run.
If they happen not to be born during a certain year or a certain time frame, they miss out on the opportunity to shape their downtown. Just because it based on this legislation would be preserved to a particular time frame. It would be a time capsule. It could never be altered or expanded upon or enhanced in any way. So while I appreciate what exists, I do not wish to rob the children of the future the ability to shape their future at the same time. I understand the desire to preserve historic buildings, and we called that out in our list, as well as Oak Street. But just having a blanket this particular area or one particular area strikes me as taking away opportunities from people who weren't offered the opportunities that others were.
Yeah. My vision does do that, restricts opportunities in this part. It doesn't say anything about what goes up next to Power Station or down on Columbia Street at 19th, or behind Subway sandwich shop. There's lots of part, or next to Pine Street Bakery. There's lots of parts of our city that are still open season.
And the only part that I had really that I thought we might want to talk about is just at what height. At our last meeting, Mark, since you're here, I said that 50 feet was a straight arbitrary number. It could be whatever. That's what I really wanted us to talk about was if we decide to move forward with this, at what scale do we want to do that? That's waivers.
Doug.
Part of this that I've been made aware of is if we're intending to still preserve contributing buildings, et cetera, downtown, how current is that list? When's the last time that list was updated? And
like the fear is that there might be not enough buildings on it. Some treasures might be absent from the list.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like since 1994 there hasn't been much movement in terms of studies of some of these buildings, et cetera. And I think the Landmarks Review Board is concerned about that.
Okay. Dustin is raising his hand.
Yeah. So it was last updated in 2004. I do have the list here. I also have a map of the downtown historic overlay zone. If you would like me to pull those up, I can do that. Okay.
Sure.
If I may, while she's doing that, contributing structures, that's a term of art in establishing a historic district. And what is contributing and structures that aren't, that's specified on a lot by lot, structure by structure basis in the nomination that is adopted by the federal government in the listing. So it's kind of established in the beginning through a pretty extensive research effort.
How many lines are there in this table? Jackie? 41. Thank you.
2 pages. Is this a good speed? Okay.
Great. Thank you for pulling that up. That was any help, but anybody want to see that list for a longer time? Okay, carry on. Thank you, Jackie. You had the overlay.
And Mayor, I'll just mention that this list and the map were both emailed to full council about 4 o'clock today. So you have it in your inbox if you haven't had a chance to see it.
And now here's the map of the overlay zone we're talking about. There's a subset of this discussion that I've been involved in more personally, which is there's a artist that's done lots of sort of kid participatory projects with broken tile mosaics. There's one at Providence springs to mind right now, but there's maybe below Three Rivers restaurant. I mean, for a while there was a lot of mosaic going up, and I had a couple conversations with the people I knew about it and discovered a diversity of opinion. Some people thought that was great, and I heard other people say, oh my gosh, how long until every single surface is going to be covered with a broken tile mosaic? So there's just different opinions about that, and I appreciated those. Questions for Jackie or Dan?
I think that there's a existential question, what are we doing with this? And then I have a handful of notes related to, shouldn't 1803.30.b say something slightly different? But I don't want to bring those up until we have a general.
I agree. I think I'd like to hear from more counselors to see if we have 4 votes in favor of more restrictive or more permissive or honing the details of a more permissive or?
I'll just say that I'm really struggling with this one. You know, the mural that was mentioned earlier, that is a mural that I think that I walk by all the time and have a huge connection to. One of the people that created that mural was really involved in bringing some of my time as a volunteer to as a musician play like at some benefits and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was a really good idea. And you know, I think public art is a really good way to coexist with is a way to, you know, actually help preserve the historic nature of buildings, et cetera, because you're not knocking down buildings, et cetera. Like, you can't do any of this stuff. What can you do, to Grant's point about allowing, you know, our generation to, or future generations to be able to add to somewhere that is preserved. And I see the value of that, but I also, to, you know, Dan's point that's been made before, and Mark just mentioned he was in Europe. I lived in Europe, and it's like, oh, this stuff is all around historic sites. They can regulate content in ways that we can't. So it's to me, you know, hearing from everybody else, you know, being that I'm so conflicted in this, it would help in my decision, but sort of on both sides of the fence here. I understand there's been a tremendous amount of work that's gone into the Landmarks Review Board and the creation of that and preserving what that legacy is, et cetera. It's always difficult for us, I think, especially without being aided by what we are today. You know, it's really easy for example, for Abigail to go and look at a meeting from a couple of years ago because we record them. And it's really hard to understand the intention of what people came before us and if they grappled with these issues in the way that we're grappling with them. But yeah, I really see, you know, the points from both sides of the aisle here. Certainly, yeah.
Jim.
I'm in favor of excluding it from the historic downtown district. For the reasons that you state, Paul, for the reasons that Arthur stated in his public comment, for the reasons that Cindy stated in her public comment, and also I can just see that at some point in time, this is going to lead to conflict. And I don't know, I don't understand what the rush is to do this. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Jim.
Maybe this is a question for Dan. If we adopt something like this and someone paints a big swastika on Pietro's, can we just rescind the whole thing in the next meeting and everyone has to paint over any murals that they have?
No, they would have essentially a non-conforming status that it would stay up. It's always been the difficulty in, you know, the litigation on these things is through billboards. And so the case law says that, you know, you change the regulations and they stay in place as a non-conforming use. And if you want it to be removed, you basically have to pay for it.
Can I give a thought?
Jackie.
Since it seems like the issue of the downtown historic district is the one that we are really getting hung up on. Once it's permitted, right, and then something goes there, then, you know, it becomes non-conforming use if we decide we don't like it. Versus, right, if we were to say, all right, we're going to allow mural code throughout the city, we're going to exclude the historic district, we can revisit this in a couple years. I think that's something that came up before, is revisiting it in a few years and seeing if, you know, maybe we do want to be more permissive. We've, you know, given murals a try. We're not seeing anything we don't want to see. We'd actually like to see more. So just food for thought. One thing we're hearing as well with the community input is to start more restrictive. And if it's going well, potentially opening it up to being a little bit less restrictive. And since this is an issue that, throughout all of our discussions, has been a challenging point, you know, that could, because we're excluding something now, doesn't mean it couldn't be opened up in the future.
Thank you, Jackie.
I guess, and thank you for that, Jackie. I mean, that's definitely something I've discussed with a few people is, can we try it somewhere else? I guess that those who are not in favor of putting anything in the historic district, is it because you're concerned of the risk of something from the Bullies of America showing up? Is it you don't want any murals? It takes away from the character. Is it more the content, or is it just murals in general? I'm just curious.
I guess for me, three things. Bullies of America. It doesn't need prettified, it's pretty now. And I can imagine things that are not Bullies of America that would just clash and not that would reduce the beauty. Something short of a totally disgusting content would just be like, oh, we don't want to have, we don't. I both don't think it lacks for attractiveness, and addition could make it less nice. Great.
The concern about it being less pretty, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Some people, that's taste, fashion. You see Paris when it's fashion week. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. It's all, some of it's great, some of it might not be, who knows, but it's all just there. And it doesn't really cause that much of a problem. It doesn't really cause that much of a stir. I think these are the same questions that are going to come up. If we are more restrictive now, these exact same questions are going to come up later again. And it won't, the arguments I've heard so far haven't changed whether it's explored now or whether it's explored later. Are we choosing to wrap historic downtown in a protective layer of bubble wrap until we feel it's time that we can slowly unwrap the bubble wrap and take an area that we may not care as much about and let it just explore, go like a, this is gonna be a terrible analogy, a child who's our favorite and one that's not. Go explore the world, child we don't care about. This one we care about, we're actually going to put you through college and nurture you and give you the supplies you need and wrap and give you a nice comfortable little life, that sort of thing. I don't know if that really makes sense and is healthy long term. Does that make sense?
This is a great conversation. I'm really glad we're trying to figure out where we want to stand on it.
And I understand the concerns and the fear with opening up an area that we care about, that has been curated and architecturally designed over the years, opening it up to potential parts change. But if we don't open ourselves up to that sort of thing, do we not challenge ourselves to become better people, grow, explore ideas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the stuff that parents teach kids all the time?
Yeah, I wouldn't characterize it as being afraid, right? There's no fear. It's really, is there a place in our community to preserve historic places, right? Or is there none, right? What is the purpose of a historic district? What's the purpose of the Landmarks Review Board? So all this just seems terribly conflicted to me, right? So the way that you're painting it, Grant, makes like somehow preserving the historic character of the downtown is fearful or afraid, or we don't like art. And I don't agree with that at all. So it's just, I just don't understand. It just seems conflicted to me.
If that's not what it is, Tim, then what is it?
Excuse me?
If it's not coming from a place of fear, that we would be opening up this area to the bullies of America.
It's finding a place grant to allow for different types of things for people that value different things. Some people view historical things, right? Is there none of that we can preserve?
It is preserved in what we've written up in the ordinance.
Now, getting back to your point, now isn't that just a point of view, right?
Sure, that's what we're here to debate.
Right. Well, I'm just putting it back on you. Isn't that your perspective? It may not be other people's perspective.
So I'm counting Tim and Paul as a vote for restrictive. I'm counting Grant as a vote for less restrictive. We got 3 other folks we need to hear from so we can come to a 4.
I'll jump in.
Go ahead, Gladys.
I want to just acknowledge that I appreciate the Landmark Review Board and for all the work that they've done in making sure that we're preserving some of these buildings. But at the same time, just because we've always done things a certain way doesn't mean that we always have to do it. If that were the case, I mean, I brought this up the last time, I wouldn't be on council, right? Because before me, there weren't other people who looked and spoke like me here. So I am not bound to just keeping things the way as is just because. I believe in art as a form to express ourselves. I also, not necessarily worried, but truly hope, right, that we're not going to have some negativity on some of our buildings. Some of you expressed that this is challenging and conflicting, and I agree. I want to see change as well. And maybe we start off by being a little more restrictive and then opening it up as time goes by, just to give an opportunity to see what are folks putting up on some of our buildings. I think our team has already done a great job in giving us some sense of guidance on here's a specific area that we can exclude and it can go on other buildings. I'm not sure if we should, what other buildings aren't contributing buildings that have been on the list. I don't know if that's something that staff has looked at. What are the buildings that aren't included now? And I'm just really conflicted by what to do. I'm open to change and other opportunities. Yeah.
Thank you, Gladys. Doug and Mark.
So I've been embarrassed on council when people come to us and say, I want to do something cool. And we go, well, we don't really have a code. We like the idea, but I guess, we need to go do our homework before we can do something. And then we just keep not doing homework. So we should either do something or say we're never gonna, that it's dead and no is the answer. And Shelley's little pieces of tile, which I love, would exist, and the mural behind the Elks Wall would not. The next one of those wouldn't happen. So I think that's a shame. So I like this ordinance. I would like to find a way to excluding the historic buildings downtown, but leaving and the path to add new historic buildings if we wanted to on the list, that we leave that and include downtown. If the only way to get to 4 votes is to exclude the downtown area, I would vote yes, but just exposing all my cards right now. But
I would vote yes for restricted, you're saying.
But my preference would be that it not exclude downtown.
All right, thank you. Doug, down to you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be noted that, the landmarks review boards across Oregon and the country would not want this. So that it's clear that we're bucking that trend. I think it's also clear that the artist community wants this. And they're quite in conflict. I wish we could survey every single person in the city. I don't think this warrants that. I do feel that the last time that we talked about this, the compromise of the 75-foot buffer center line on Oak Street was a compromise to do that at odds. You know, I'm similar to Mark. If we don't have the votes to do the historic district, then I would be in favor of, you know, doing that without it. But I think that as it's written, this compromise is appeasing both communities in some sort of way. No one's getting exactly what they want, unfortunately, but
I would assert that restricting downtown leaves the waterfront and West Cascade and the Heights as mural ready, like open for Fashion Week business. That's a lot of walls to paint.
I agree.
Same.
well, I mean, also to the point that Jackie made, you know, I think if we revisited this and at a later date, it would still be the same answer from, you know, the Landmarks Review Board, but other counselors, what would you feel if we had 2 years of murals allowed and they were allowed in areas not in the historic district? Would you be in favor of allowing them in the historic district after that period of time?
Depends how it goes.
No, that's what I mean. Like, let's say it goes well and we have some really positive murals that reflect the history and the culture of everything.
Maybe I don't think it depends how it goes. Maybe I still am very mindful of the Lilies of America.
I think that's important. Yeah, I think it's important to know.
That there's kind of, for me, there's kinds of beauty and we got a kind of beauty and we don't want to, I mean, I ski with my skinny skis on the groom trails and I ski with my fat skis in the rough snow, and those are both awesome, but yeah. Gladys, was it you or?
Yeah, I said I'd be open to reevaluating in 2 years and seeing how things go. I don't want to say no either. Just because we've always done it one way doesn't mean that that's how we have to do it moving forward. So I'd be open to reevaluating after 2 years.
Mark,
I'm gonna make a motion and to see if it, so I move that we direct staff to prepare an ordinance to adopt 1803 for consideration at a future meeting with the whole city, not excluding the downtown district.
I want to understand, does that include the 75 or what the stuff that's in now?
Well, we're gonna have to come back anyway and straighten stuff out. So I'm making a motion that we ask them to come back with an ordinance that will debate the height and yeah, but I think we get another bite at the apple. I think the big thing is, are we going to do this or not? And does it include the historic district? And my motion is that we're going to do it and it includes the historic.
Her historic district is paintable.
Yes.
Motion by Zeno.
Second
by Paulson. Let's go slow so we don't have to recount and stuff. Any further discussion? I'm going to roll call it. Paulson.
Aye.
Zen Miller.
Yes.
Stepina. No. Rivera.
No.
Conahan.
No.
Chair votes nay. Motion fails. Okay, well thank you, Mark. I mean, that's productive. That's, some people start that way, by the way. They don't talk and we move and then, so that didn't pass. Doug?
Can I make a motion to do it with the 75-foot buffer? So as written? He said not the 75-foot buffer. He said the district.
As written, moved by Stepina.
Second
by Paulson. We're gonna roll call it. Conahan.
No.
Rivera.
Yes.
Stepina.
Yes.
Zen Miller.
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
Motion passed. Does that give you what you need, Jackie?
Yes, except for unless you have further comments on the height.
I think with what we just passed, I think, I mean, we could stay and talk about the detailing bits now, or we can see that at the next.
Yeah, when we introduced this, 15 feet was
totally arbitrary. So if we want to discuss that, we should discuss that.
I think it's a relevant question to say, when Jackie brings it back, what are y'all gonna vote in favor of? That's just helpful.
Mhm.
So is 15 high or low? That's kind of a question.
Right, that's the question that we.
I think it's low.
15 low.
So it's a quarter of the wall on the Elks building.
Elks building is taller than the buildings.
Other folks agree that 15 is low?
What about
I
20?
feel like Grant's really like jumping up and
I
down.
would say it doesn't need to be in there at all.
I hear some talking, I'm sorry, what is it?
I
said,
would-
what about
trying to
20?
get-
Okay, Gladys is saying 20. Doug?
Let's just talk about the intentions here, right? So I think Grant brought this up in the context of you're driving on 84, there's a giant billboard all of a sudden that's painted on the back of the building that you can see. So I don't think it's so much about height restriction as it is where it goes on the building. I'm not sure the right way to say that, but it's, I think Grant, you brought up at one point, like, ground level from measured from ground level. I mean, I think that's the intention is to, we want something that is, not, is engageable by the public on the ground, not someone that's on 84.
Yeah, this code measures from the ground, and my intent was to introduce or talk about something that was more human scale, not that you're going to experience from a plane or anywhere else other than nearby. So I mean, even 15 feet, I would imagine that 15 feet is plenty of space for a mural.
I mean, I'm looking at Reverend Miranda there in the back row. I'm guessing her head is about 4 feet off the ground. So it goes up to the exit sign. I mean, that's very tall.
So, yeah, and just to clarify, this is 12 and a half feet
To
approximately.
the building.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so 50 feet higher than this here.
So when Jackie brings it back and it says 15, are we gonna start talking about it or? You okay with 15, Grant? You okay with 15?
I'm okay with it.
Doug? I think we're okay. I think we got
Okay.
15.
Okay.
Any other questions we can give you in advance to save?
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor? Could I request, I didn't hear whether you cast your vote or not.
I didn't vote. I was gonna vote no, but we had 4 votes. Thank you.
Register it as a no, though.
Thanks for clarifying. No for the mayor.
I have one other, it's sort of a nit, but if we're down there talking, can we go over that?
Yeah. Great.
Yes.
180330B talks about a 2-year license.
Page 17.
I think that the intent was to prevent it from changing all the time. It seems to me that if someone says, I just want to make it go back to what it used to be, and I want to paint over it, that we should have the ability to say, yeah, you can do that.
The intent of that is to keep it from being as desirable for commercial, for a billboard, which changes more frequently. And the 2-year has kind of been, and maybe Dan, you want to chime in a little bit, but the 2 years fairly standard in terms of preventing the mural from being used as a commeral retail.
And I think that's great. I want to have the ability that if they say, this is ugly, and I just want to paint over it, that we actually have permission to paint over it. Because my read of it now is like, no, you gotta wait for 2 years.
Yeah, I think they would have to be very thoughtful and considerate before they just slap up a bunch of paint. They need to make sure that they are comfortable with what they're painting if they're just gonna stick around, so it's just fine.
May I
I'd
clarify?
rather be careful process and thoughtful there.
May I ask a clarifying question? Just when you say paint over it, you mean like return it to its original state,
Yes.
not ask to change the mural frequently?
Demural.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, I would be reluctant to recommend you put something like that in this code because Jackie's right. All this litigation, it's multi-million-dollar litigation against local governments and their codes. It's driven by the advertising industry, particularly billboards. And this is one of the key provisions designed to make this not fit the business model for sign companies.
I'm hip to that. I just thought that if everyone agreed, city and the building owner, that they just wanted it to go away. That
I think that they can come to us and say, hey, we want to waive the rule, and we could say, okay, right? We're the city council. Dan?
I'd have to think about it, how that would work. To have it so, because
I
one of the
would-
requirements is that, you know, it has to be time, place, manner, objectively, fairly, consistently enforced and interpreted. And this sounds extremely ad hoc.
Thank you.
It kind of undercuts the whole idea of a set of pre-adopted rules that everybody understands and lives by.
And that
So
wasn't
you have to think about how all the different ways that that could undermine. I mean, the fear here is that bad things could happen, bad things that this city has not seen for a couple decades, but may well. And this is one of those provisions to open the crack in the door and keep bad things from happening. And so I hadn't thought about it. I was glad to see this provision, but who would make such a decision? Under what circumstances would it be okay to give a free pass and obliterate a sign like this?
Great, so you're gonna think about that, and Jackie's gonna bring it back, and we'll, if that topic is still of interest, we'll talk about that at a future version, okay?
And I do just want to highlight that as well, there is the neighborhood contact piece of this. So that, ideally the community would be able to voice their concerns and ahead of time. So we're not in that situation of like, okay, we really all hate this mural. They would have been able to review it and voice their opinion to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's good. And that's sort of the peer pressure.
Anybody opposed to that? We got everybody okay with this notification contact piece? Anybody concerned about it? Nobody's concerned about it.
I kind of want to change my vote, honestly, back to no instead of a yes.
Parliamentarian Dan, we have some buyer's remorse.
Well, it wasn't really it was a straw vote to begin with. And this, staff is just looking for general guidance to put together an ordinance for your consideration. So, what the council giveth, the council can taketh away. Now, if you want to have someone could make a motion, Gladys just saying, that for another straw poll vote, now that some of the details are being fleshed out, or you could wait till we have this kind of in more ordinance form and you could debate it then.
I will wait until an ordinance has been drafted.
Okay.
Great, thanks everybody. That was a robust and important discussion. Jackie, thanks for bringing that to it. Anything else on this topic?
None for me.
Thanks, Jackie.
All right, thank you guys.
Jen, nothing for you, right? Abigail.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple city manager comments. First, the city hall will be closed for President's Day. So our city offices, that's next Monday, the 19th. The following day on the 20th, staff and our developers, community development partners, and Joel Madsen from Housing will be at the Board of County Commissioners meeting, presenting about 780 Rand Road and talking about the construction excise tax. And then finally, as you may have noticed, Second and Oak is closed. Barriers went up today. Staff went to the Visit Hood River Downtown Association meeting last week, had a really good conversation with downtown businesses, and they had some great suggestions about adding signage and other ways to publicize that businesses will be open. So let everybody know businesses are still open, but we hope to do this construction as fast as humanly possible.
Great,
Thank you.
Committee reports. Tim.
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Gladys.
Thing for me.
Doug,
I've not attended any meetings since the last.
Mark,
Same. We had our Region 1 Act meeting a week ago. Yeah, that's a regular one a week ago. I missed the last two with the work plan. There are a number of grant and funding opportunities available through the state for a lot of projects that fit in our wheelhouse regarding both city size and modes of transportation, active transport and that sort of thing. There's going to be regularly, my understanding is more grant money and funds available to encourage and support transportation networks through smaller cities in Oregon, not anything larger than 200,000, but cities like ours. And those would be for off-street modes of transportation like multi-use bike paths, that sort of thing, trails. So that might be one way that we could apply and connect some of our non-street trails and sidewalks are included through town. There's a few other grant opportunities that are in there. I'll re-go through the materials and email out a list.
Abigail, does Haley have you got that you need to follow up on that if interested?
Yes, I think so. And Councilor Polson and I have been chatting about
Great.
this. I'm aware.
Is there any chance that Parks and Rec would do that for the Campbell path? Or is that not how this game goes?
I'm not sure, but they have actually already received funds either from ODOT or from Oregon Parks and Recreation.
Great, so they're
Office.
doing everything. Good.
Yeah, but I can mention that to next time I see their director.
Thank you. Now I'm fumbling. I have in front of me a draft letter to our state reps and senators indicating we support the Resolution Center. I don't know how closely you all have been following this. This is a big project in the Dalles. I wanted to ask you guys if we want to support that.
In full support.
Full support. Thank you, Gladys.
Yes.
Thumbs, we're all in. Yep. Great. Thank you. Council comments. Grant.
I kind of in an odd way, look forward to the intersection at Second being closed for a time and would encourage other counselors to just observe how traffic and people get around through that intersection. One thing that a number of people in the community have talked with me about is pedestrianizing downtown, especially that area. So something to think about longer term. Longer term is how people interact with the space without vehicles there. So
That's quite a funny idea. We put in a traffic light and then realized we don't want to drive through that intersection. Excellent. Thanks for thinking about that. That's cool. Anything else, Grant?
No.
Mark.
All right, I have a longish list, but I can do it really fast. Appreciation to Abigail for working with Allison at the county already to address a person's concerns about a homeless camp on little islands in the river. And to me, it's a worthwhile discussion because we're just weeks away from very high, very fast water. And so I thought that was local government doing what local government has to do. So thank you. This is just going down in order. I will be gone all of April and all of May. Good for Mark. Sort of ditching you guys. I might be able to zoom in on the April ones. I'll be in Eclipse Land and the US Southeast. I am supporting as Mark a series of meetings with people about the pool. And so I'll just tell you that I'm doing that. I'm now in the Master Gardener trainee class and it's run by OSU and they have some materials with respect to collaborative teaming and how to run meetings and stuff that I think is really good. So I will email that to Abigail and ask her to send it around. So we're doing that. Olympic trials tickets are on sale on January 20th. This is the track and field at Hayward Field. So,
They were already on set.
no, today's February 20th. Sorry, I wrote January 20th, but I have a problem with months, I guess. So and they go on sale at 9 and they'll be sold out by like 9:42 probably. So on March 21st, the Gorge Tech Alliance is hosting astronaut Commander Jeff Williams, and he's going to be at the middle school. So if anyone's sort of sciencey and geeky, I think that it'll be pretty neat. This guy has spent like 500 days in the space station over his active astronauting career, and he's got things to say, I guess. There was an e-bike email from Megan Ramey that they're talking at Thursday at the legislature. I don't think there's anything we can do as an ask. I might send an email saying go. It has to do with letting little kids ride e-bikes that you have to actually have to pedal, and actually making it harder for little kids to ride the ones that are just a motorcycle. So, and for my observing the safe routes thing, that's a really good thing. So look for your email for that. And then the Niners lost last night. It's a bummer. So that was everything I had. It was a football game. Yeah. It was super.
Anything else? Anything relevant, Mark? Doug.
Yeah.
I just want to thank the children from Bright Beginnings that were out on the street today sweeping up. There was and also thank the city and staff for communicating to everybody out there that it is your responsibility to do things like clear up the rocks, right? I hear from people a lot, oh, there's a lot of rocks out there, it's dangerous. We all have to do our part to clean that up, right? So I thought that was a really good example that they were setting. It came from a conversation that I had there where, you know, some parents were saying, oh, it's very dangerous out there. And I said, oh, you know, it's actually the responsibility. And right away, the teachers there said, let's go out there and help out, you know,
On the sidewalks.
on the sidewalks, not just in, not in the street. Yeah. So really thought that was a good thing for them to do, a good lesson for the kids in civics as well. So
Well done.
yeah. And yeah, just want to mention, you know, I actually spoke to quite a few people about the mural code. Not going to debate that anymore, but just would keep encouraging people to come and speak to your city councilors. We do value your input. We value differing opinions, and it helps us understand what the city's constituents want, you know, so I appreciate everybody that reached out to me regarding that. Keep doing it for everything.
Thank you. Tim.
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Gladys.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that Sense of Place is still happening, and on the 21st at 7 p.m. They're going to host a lecture called Grow a Pear. As many of you know, this is the #1 pear producing region in the country. So Sarah is going to host Leslie Tamura and Adam McCarthy. So I invite you all to join and learn about, you know, this is Agtown, and yeah, we grow some of the best pears in the country.
Great. That brings us to the agenda item that Reverend Boonstra brought to us this evening. Thank you, John, for your leadership. I'm going to propose something, and if we don't like that, we can do something else. I'm going to propose, as I heard them request, that we add it to our agenda to discuss. I don't think that 8:30 is the best time to talk about it, but I'm open to change. But my idea would be that soon we put it on as a topic for us to discuss. How does that seem to people?
Sounds good, Paul.
All right, we got 4 yeses on that. That's what's going to happen. I'll keep you apprised, John. Thank you. Now we have a couple executive sessions. Estimated time?
15 minutes.
All right, we're not going to take a break. We can carry on. Is that okay, everybody? All right. Now I'm going to read my script. The City Council will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.662E to discuss deliberations with persons you have designated to negotiate real property transactions. Representatives of the news media and designated staff are allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room, and we will end the public broadcast. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made nor final action taken in executive session. The executive session is anticipated to last 15 minutes. At the end of the executive session, the city council meeting will be adjourned and no action will be taken. We will now discontinue the live feed and recording.